Hey everyone, Monday, December 12th, 2016, and it's time to go to work on music. So today's goals are, first of all, to get a reasonable guitar practice in, probably going to keep that pretty light, possibly short, and then just work on the set still. This is the week where I really want to just polish things up, finalize everything, and just sort of move on to other stuff starting next week. So, um, what I'm going to do is probably just run through the set mentally because I'm a little light on time and so I don't necessarily want to set up all the gear. But just do some visualization practice, work out some of the kinks, make sure I'm firing all those neurons in my brain, and just strengthening those connections, making it easier to perform. And hopefully, going to do some volume practice a little bit later this week. So let's get to it.
Okay, some interesting thoughts from the Learning How to Learn class. Um, just talking about how when you're writing, it's good to keep sentences short, and then always ask yourself the question, what must I not leave out? What has to be in here for sure? And I could definitely apply those things to composition and songwriting. I mean, it really depends on how experimental you want to be. I think they're exploring writing in a more academic context and a more sort of journalistic context, which I think music can serve that purpose at times, maybe like a time capsule or a political message. But I mean, when we're talking about real artistic exploration and self-expression, I think some of those rules, um, can be good leverage for you if you want to express your ideas that way. But I just don't know if there can be any rules set around what's creatively acceptable and not. I mean, I think the heart of innovation is the willingness to defy um, what's popularly accepted or recommended. It's always a weird tension, trying to do something new, but also trying to make it high quality, um, because those terms can be really relative. But I'm thinking about that mostly because the Beinhorn blog article I read was about innovation and appropriation and sort of what that means in the modern context. Now, it was written 2 years ago, but I think it still applies, and he makes some really good points about bands like Led Zeppelin, who at the time were lauded as like, or not lauded, but were derided as like corporate rock. And it's like looking back on Led Zeppelin records, you don't really think about that as corporate rock. It's like seems so badass and rebellious at the time, or in retrospect. And you think about the same thing with the Rolling Stones, but then you also realize, like, wow, these artists were insanely popular and sold millions of records. And it's kind of difficult to draw an analogy to them today, possibly hip hop artists who make it really big, or DJs, actually. Probably that's the better analogy, would be music producers and electronic musicians who are sort of like the rock stars of today who make so much money making this music that's still almost has like a fringe sound. I mean, not anymore, now that it's been kind of done to death, but it's just interesting the whole cycle of what's, counterculture and then becomes appropriated or becomes mainstream or becomes popular. I mean, it just really makes you think about the whole machine of culture and the whole machine of popular appeal and mass appeal. And the more I read about it and think about it, the more I just realize, like, I just don't know if that's really my goal. I mean, that would be great. Don't get me wrong. It would be amazing to write a record that really resonates with lots and lots and lots of people, but I would want that to be as a result of breaking rules and going my own path rather than, um, just emulating some popular formulas. I mean, I think emulation and copying, I don't think is the right word, but emulating certain influences is part of how you explore your creativity and part of how you get rid of the duds that get you to the diamonds. And I think embracing that not everything you do is going to be great, and that you're going to have to cycle through a lot of stuff to really get at the heart of what's true for you, is really beneficial. But yeah, now that I'm thinking about it and now that I'm talking about it, I realize that um, for me, to be that type of artist who makes a record that breaks through and crushes a lot of barriers and maybe even becomes really successful, you have to just focus on doing your own thing. You have to focus on not the end result, not the success of it, but the process of breaking down barriers, the process of being as courageous as possible in confronting your own fears about whether people will like something or not, whether something's even good or not. I think those whole ideas really need to be questioned and deconstructed and maybe even just fucking ignored. Um, and I think the more I get into this, the more I realize that that's what it's about. Is it's just about honesty and authenticity. And if you can get that, I just really don't know how much anything else really matters. It's some people are gonna break through. They're gonna have their moment, and that's gonna happen, and that's awesome. And other people are gonna be really strategic about their marketing plan, and that's a really legitimate option these days, which is fantastic, and sort of unprecedented. And then other people are just gonna, remain in obscurity, just doing their thing, and I think all of those things are valid. Um, I think, if you just want to be famous and make a lot of money, there might be other ways that could be better than just making pop music, but if that's your goal and you're really good, why not? You know, I'm just saying, I think the more I read about that and the more I think about it, the more I just realize it helps me define my own goals. Like, I think reading things you don't necessarily agree with can be really, really valuable because it forces you to create your own definition of what you're about and what your success is. Like, why don't I agree with this? What is it about how I feel that makes me either resonate with this or not resonate with it? Really, really valuable questions. So, yeah, a lot to think about. But with that in mind, let's get to work here.
All right, good session overall. Certainly on the shorter side, but wasn't the end of the world today. I'm feeling a little more relaxed about that now, which is nice. Don't want to get too relaxed, but at the same time, don't want to be too stressed for no reason. I mean, I'm making progress. So what I just did is I took a short break, had a quick snack, did some reading, and then just ran through the first two songs of the show just mentally. And it's great to do that. I think it gives me a totally different perspective because I'm thinking about the technical elements involved, but because I don't actually have to execute them, I have this sort of higher level view, and I feel like I have a little more cognitive capacity to just make adjustments, change things up without worrying too much about whether it's right or wrong, and it just gives me a little bit more freedom to focus on the logistics. And then sometimes also the performance elements, or just isolate different things that I want to isolate, like the emotion of a certain performance versus just the sonics. So yeah, that was good. I would have loved to have gone through the whole set. I'll probably do that tomorrow. Maybe for real, maybe just mentally. I'm not sure yet. We'll see how the day goes. But other than that, really productive session, short and sweet. And yeah, hope you guys are out there grinding towards your goals. I'll see you tomorrow.